I'm glad my colleagues from North Dakota are here because I know you see this issue, from the perspective of your state, but I want you to understand the perspective of our state because practically every newspaper in our state is editorialized on this. The state legislature is considering legislation. The city of Seattle is considering legislation. And the issue is that as this rail transports into our state from Spokane down to Pasco through the Columbia Gorge, to say nothing of the treachery of and the unique environmental aspects of the Columbia Gorge, then through Vancouver, then up to Tacoma and perhaps on through Seattle, through Everett, up to Skagit County for processing. So you hit every population area in our state, okay? We're talking about population areas, 3 of them that are larger than your whole state. Okay, we're talking about waterfronts that are integrated with ferry systems and in highly, active waterfronts. So when people look at this issue for us, they see the volatility of this product moving through major population centers. Not one, but every population center in our state, save a few. So that's why our state is very anxious about this, and that's why, Mr. Chairman, I agree. I don't personally think that this is an issue about voluntary, although we appreciate voluntary. I think to protect our citizens, we have to be clear about what it is we're willing to do. So I first have a question for Mr. Searles about the this .111 car issues that Mr. Hart has basically said are an unacceptable public risk. That's what NTSB has said right now. They're unacceptable. So my question is, when are the companies committed to ending the use of these cars?
Thank you for the question, Senator. The first thing that we've done is we stepped in and we developed over a 3-year period the upgraded tank car standards. So these are the CPC 1232 standard, and that took 3 years to go in and look at all of the data that was required to understand the best approach that could be taken to make these cars safer. The industry concluded with consensus on that, and in the review of that consensus standard, the DOT led the review to determine whether or not we were going to have sufficient improvements there, and the conclusion was that we did, and thus we petitioned the federal government to make the CPC 1232 the new standard. All of that was data-driven. Since that time, we have been building that tank car to the point that we have 40% of the fleet this year will be the new tank car, and 60% by the end of 2015. So we have been leaning forward beyond what the DOT requirements were and are today, and believe that those tank cars are going to be sufficient to be able to move the tank car, to be able to move the product from here forward.
So what year will all of them be off our rails?
Well, we're looking at the tank cars that were manufactured before the new standards came out, and in fact, in our in our comments to the ANPRM, we asked for the FRA and PHMSA to lead a task force to review that. Since that time, we have been looking at the requirements to determine if retrofits are possible and whether or not there's meaningful improvements to those tank cars that can be made.
Well, I guess I would say, since we've gone from 4 years ago having basically nothing by rail on crude to now having something like 480,000 carloads of crude, so about 11 trains per day, to our population centers, this is a big deal. Absolutely. So knowing when those cars that are going to be off those rails that NTSB has already said are unacceptable, this is Mr. Chairman, this is a key issue for me and for my state. And then I know I only have 30 seconds left. I guess I would just say that, I don't know, when you have a voluntary system, not everybody complies with it. What do you do about that? And even when people sign a voluntary agreement and then have a violation, is there a penalty? Is there a risk against that and stopping that behavior? So, Mr. Chairman, I think I'm more in the boat of where you are. I think we have to mandate the security that needs to be there because these population centers are just, you know, I don't know what our cities and jurisdictions are going to do. They might decide to ban this altogether. I think we have to prove that the public is going to be safe here. And again, we haven't, I know I'm out of time, but we haven't even gotten to this issue of the highly flammable material. And maybe somebody could tell me what safety precautions are going to be made in the future to change Bakken oil into a transportable product that is not as flammable.